Right. So in the last session, we discussed about enterprise structure. We discussed about enterprise structure, and uh, here we have a few data points to manage the employees' information. We use enterprise to maintain the company registration information. We use legal entity, and to record the day-to-day business transactions, we use business unit concept. To manage the stock related information, we create inventory organization within the system. And how many we have to create as a part of implementation? Only one enterprise for one client. Within that enterprise, you can have n number of LDGs, legislative data groups, which are specific to country. If you are doing implementation for multiple countries, yes, multiple legislative data groups we can create. But when you talk about enterprise would be only one. Primary ledgers, one primary ledger for each country, and we can create more than one, but there is no need to create more than one primary ledger within one country. In one country, one primary ledger would be best practice. Legal entities always depends on number of registrations the client has, and business unit already discussed. It could be based on the legal entities, or it could be based on the number of businesses what they are doing, or else it could be based on the branches which they are operating. Right. So based on number of registrations, you may opt business unit, or else it could be based on number of businesses the client is doing, or it could be based on number of branches. So that's up to the client, but the probabilities and all we are trying to understand how generally we create the business unit. Your client business unit may be their business legal entity. Client business unit may be different business, or a client business unit may be their branch where they are operating the business. It could be anything. That is their decision. And inventory organizations, how many real physical warehouses they have in the business. Accordingly, we have to design the inventory organizations. And when you talk about the benefits of business unit, it will facilitate transaction tracking. Business unit wise, you can track the transactions. Since you are recording the transactions business unit wise, you would be able to generate the reports business unit wise, and business unit wise for the data you can set the security. Also you can set certain controls on the transaction activities what you do within the business unit, and data segregation also possible, and you can set certain default rules which should be applicable for specific business unit. And if you talk about the enterprise structure, what level what applications can be mapped? So enterprise means we are talking about we are going to manage the employees information. How do you manage the employees information? With the help of HCM applications. By using human capital management applications, we can maintain the employees. And by using primary ledger, you can record the transactions. That's what we discussed. So that level we map the GL and FA applications. Okay. And legal entity, for registration information, that level we map the cash management. Within the cash management, we maintain the bank accounts. That's how we specify the bank accounts belongs to which legal entity, means which company. That's how we do the mapping. So business unit level, we map multiple applications. In any one of these applications, if you want to create the business transactions, without business unit, we cannot record. And inventory organization level will map inventory and manufacturing applications. Inventory and manufacturing application. This is how we do the mapping based on enterprise structure units. Okay, these are the enterprise units. Each enterprise unit level, we do the mapping of these applications. When we talk about report generation, that always the record transactions, the real business transactions we are recording at our business unit level. Yes, we generate the reports at business unit level, but reality, the data, all the BUs related data we send to GL applications. The place would be GL to prepare the reports, but the level of reporting would be business unit. So these are the points we have to understand now. So we'll see like what are the best practices when you design the chart of accounts, the segment naming conventions between Fusion versus EBS. The enterprise structure also will discuss. So before we just get into these best practices, so let's look into the structure representation, how it would be based on the use case of where you are operating the business. Okay. So here you could see the enterprise structure. So this is a hierarchy. Okay. So this is a hierarchy which need to be followed. So enterprise structure in Oracle Fusion application. Top level we have enterprise. Under enterprise, we can have a division. Reality, we don't create the divisions. Reason, divisions are not going to have any value addition as a part of enterprise structure. It is just placeholder. We cannot record any business transactions also. And primary ledger will be under divisions. Under primary ledger, we'll maintain the legal entities. Under legal entities, business units. Under business unit, inventory organization. How many we have to create, that totally depends. Okay. How many we have to create, that totally depends. So how many countries they are operating the business, how many registrations they have, what they want to take as a business unit. Based on those parameters, the number of primary ledgers, legal entities, business units can be decided. Now, if you take example, client is operating the business in one country, that is US, and they have two divisions. Okay, they have a two divisions, and they have a two separate registrations, and they are operating the business in four locations with the different warehouses. If that is a use case, this is how the enterprise structure looks like. We are not going to design the enterprise structure within the instance. Based on the setups, what we do, system will understand. So what is falling under what and what is mapped with what. System can understand that logically, but we are not going to design as it is in the system environment. When you create inventory, we specify the inventories belongs to which business unit. When you create the business unit is belongs to which legal entity we have to set in the system. And again, we have to specify the business unit is belongs to which primary ledger. This is how we have to specify in the system. But directly you cannot specify that primary ledger belongs to which division as a part of your primary ledger definition or business unit definition or legal entity definition. So if you take example, the client is operating the business in US. So we have only one primary ledger since they are operating the business in one country. Say they are into two different businesses. One is consulting, other one is electronics. Since they have two businesses, they may opt for two divisions also. Consulting division, electronics division. Say they have a separate registrations for each business. They are into two businesses, consulting and electronics. So for two registrations, two legal entities. Consulting legal entity, electronics legal entity, two legal entities. Under each legal entity, okay, with each registration, they are operating the business in two locations. The consulting business they are doing in the two locations, New York and to Dallas. So two business units. The consulting business they are doing in the two locations, say two branches they have, two business units, and electronics business, say they are doing in the two locations accordingly to business units. And since they're into consulting business, no warehouses, no inventories. That is reason stores inventory. You may not have warehouse, at least you'll have a store kind of like arrangement in the office where you can just keep your laptops or other kind of stationary kind of stuff. So as for our application, inventory is mandatory. Inventory is mandatory. If they don't have real inventory, at least you have to create the dummy inventory. So here I take an example. They don't have any warehouses. That is the reason you may create stores inventory in the system and you can map to those inventories business units or create dummy inventories. And Austin, they are dealing with the computer sales and computers inventory. And in the Los Angeles, they are into two different businesses. They are selling the computers as well as mobiles. So they have a separate warehouses as a computers and mobiles. So this is how that enterprise structure looks like. Okay, if the client is operating business in one country, two different divisions, two different registrations, four locations are running business, and with a few warehouses, this is how the structure looks like. Now, take the example, the client is operating the business in four countries.
A question on the previous one.
Yeah.
See, it looks like the location or see, generally for the registration, we need address, right? Here you are saying business unit, New York business unit. That means New York address is, do we consider the location as a business unit?
Okay. Location, when you talk about location, registration address is for registration purpose, not for business unit. Okay. Say they register the company in the Dallas, their legal entity address may be Dallas. And where exactly they are operating the business, those all they can take as a business units. Or else their registration may be different location, but their business operations could be these two locations. Okay, it could be same or different, but not based on the registration address. We create the business unit.
Correct. So I generally by the nomenclature, if you go business unit means they perform some kind of category of I would say is services that we can call as a business unit. But in this example, it is calling location as a business unit.
Yes,
Little
location
confused.
means they have branches. Say they have two branches for consulting. Two branches we are taking as a two business units.
Why don't we consider that as a cost center or location as a segment?
Yeah, we
Instead of
discussed, right? We discussed multiple
yeah,
possible. They
yeah.
can do that. They can do that.
Mm.
Those two they can take as a one segment, as a cost center, etc. In that case, they will create how many business units?
Yeah, two business units
No,
because
not
different
required.
services.
If they take those
Mhm.
two as a something else, the legal entity
Mm.
itself they'll create as one business unit,
Okay.
right? That is up to client. See, I just taken
Mm.
the example: two locations, two business units, or else one legal entity, only one business unit,
Okay.
right? And let them take these two locations as a like one of the segment called as location in the chart of accounts,
Mm.
right? They can create one
Yeah.
segment called as location. Now what they do is they can take consulting as one business unit and electronics as one business unit, two business units only, not four business units.
Correct.
And these four they can take into location segment. So whenever they require
Correct.
transactions within the consulting business unit, they will select the location is New York or Dallas.
Okay. Got it.
These all are possible. Okay, that is up to client. Okay, so it is there is no hard and fast rule says this is how it should be. No, client decision. So one of the
Okay.
possibility we are discussing here. That's it.
Got it.
Yeah. So that's how it is. Now, if you take example, the client is operating the business in four countries. Those are India, Singapore, France, UK. So in these four countries, they have a four separate registrations. So they have four separate legal entities. India legal entity, Singapore legal entity, France and UK legal entity. And this India and Singapore falls under APAC region. So they are taking as a APAC division, and France and UK EMEA division, EMEA region. So they are taking as a separate division. And in India, they are operating the business in two locations. Two locations they can take as a two business units, or else for two locations they can take one business unit also. And here, in case of Singapore, they are operating the business in only one location, one BU. France also only one location, one BU. UK, they are operating business in two locations, two different business units. And when you look at inventory organizations, so for Delhi, one, Hyderabad, one inventory, and Woodlands, one, and Paris, one, and here in London, there is no warehouse. We create dummy one because inventory is mandatory to complete certain setups as per system. They might be dealing with the services, so no inventory is required for them in the York bike segment. So this is how, like, just to understand how the pictorial representation could be based on the operations what they are doing. Here, simple case is 4 countries they are doing the business, and in India, two branches they have, or two offices or operational units they have, and in the UK also they have two. In rest of all countries, they have operations in one location. So this would be the typical enterprise structure for the use case, whatever we taken. And again, just we added divisions also. If you want to include division, how it looks like. Reality, we don't use division. Without division, this is how the enterprise structure looks like. We have enterprise. Within the enterprise, we have a 4 primary ledgers. You have 4 legal entities. Under each legal entity, based on that registration, where what you are doing, accordingly, you can create business units. For each business unit, the applicable inventory organizations. This is all about enterprise structure. Any questions from anyone, please? Any questions from anyone, please? Okay, no questions. No. So this is enterprise structure as per Fusion applications. Just will compare the same with EBS. Okay. The reason why I'm going to compare, there may be few guys who are attending this session with EBS background, or else it could be the case you don't know EBS. But the point why we are going to discuss is when we are going to work on the Fusion applications, most of the clients are moving from EBS to Fusion. Most of the clients are moving from EBS to Fusion. So you will be dealing with those clients also. The EBS will be treated as a legacy and you will be working on the Fusion. You should aware of certain terminologies and how the enterprise structure level differences. It won't take much time for us, hardly 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes. So that would be very much useful for us. Okay, when we are working on Fusion implementations, if client is moving from EBS to Fusion, you will aware like what are the structure level differences or similarities. So already discussed about Fusion enterprise structure. Okay, this is as per Fusion. Of course, here we have divisions also. Enterprise structure in Oracle Fusion. The same enterprise structure in EBS we used to call as multi-org structure. Multi-org structure in Oracle EBS R12 release 12. EBS e-business suite R12 release 12. This is the release name. As per multi-org structure in EBS, what multi-org components we have? Here multi-org means multiple, org means organizations. So whatever we call as multi-org structure as per EBS, the same we are calling as enterprise structure in the fusion. Okay. The product evolved EBS to fusion. So the base is EBS. So what naming convention we have in EBS? When you look at multi-org structure as per EBS, top level you see business group. We call as BZ in short. We have business group. Okay, multi-org structure. Top level we have business group. Under business group, there is no division as per EBS. We don't have any division. So directly you find primary ledger. PL. Under primary ledger, as per EBS, we have legal entity. And whatever we are calling as a business unit as per fusion applications, that we call as operating unit. Operating unit. Operating unit we call. Just name they changed. What we are calling as operating unit, the name they changed in the fusion as a business unit. That is a very standard term, operating unit or business term. These are not designed or discovered by Oracle. These are very regular business terms which you come across in the business. And EBS also we have inventory organization as inventory organization. So this is how we have multi-org structure in Oracle EBS R2. In EBS, you can create n number of business groups. For each country, you can create one business group and you can maintain the employees' information. But in the fusion, we can create only one enterprise. In fusion, you can create only one enterprise. But what is equivalent to business group in EBS? A fusion. We have LDZ, already discussed, legislative data group. In EBS, you can create multiple business groups, but in the fusion, you cannot create multiple enterprises, only one enterprise. But to maintain the country specific employees information, we can use the concept called as LDZ, legislative data group. Another point, division. Okay, we have a division as per fusion applications. There is no division concept. Oracle introduced division in the fusion, but that is not a great value addition. That is completely optional. Generally, we don't use in the projects as a part of enterprise structure. If you want to capture transactions, if you want to create accounting, if you want to do the reporting, if you want to produce the reports based on the division, keep division as one of the segment in the chart of account. Then you can take benefit out of it. If you are keeping division as a kind of placeholder in the enterprise structure, there is no great value addition from finance point of view. Done. And primary ledger, what we have in EBS, as it is we have in the fusion applications also, as it is they move. Legal entity, the naming convention and all, they move to fusion as it is. Whatever we call as operating unit in EBS, the name they changed in the fusion as a business unit. The behavior, functionality, usage, purpose all remain same. What we can do with the operating unit in EBS, the same we are going to do in the fusion applications. And inventory organization, yes, the inventory organization, what we have, how the functionality works in EBS, as this they move to fusion application. This is the difference between EBS R12 multi-org structure and Oracle Fusion enterprise structure. And if you talk about enterprise multi-org structure in Oracle EBS R12, this is a naming convention. If you talk about 11i, before R12 we have 11i version. Okay. we have 11i applications. Oracle EBS 11i applications. In 11i also the multi-org structure is same except primary ledger. So as it is, no difference. You can copy and paste. What is the difference between multi-org structure in 11i version to EBS version? In 11i, this name is called as set of books. So 11i, this is enterprise multi-org structure. When they move to release 12, the setup book name they change to primary ledger. And when they move to Oracle Fusion, the operating unit name they change to business unit and they introduce division. And instead of calling as a business group, here we are calling as enterprise, but equal to business group, we have LDC, legislative data group, to maintain the country specific employees information as well as to run the payrolls. So these are the points we have to notice when we talk about 11i multi-org, R12 multi-org, and Fusion enterprise structure. Any questions here from anyone, please? Okay, no questions. Fine. Any questions, please? Okay. Now, let's talk about the best practices to follow when we design the chart of accounts. As a consultant, when we are going to create the chart of accounts, what are the best practices we have to adapt?
Sorry, sir. Can I interrupt?
Please.
Sir, you're saying that, in the Fusion, we need to create the enterprise, right, sir? Only one.
Correct. We can have only one.
One. So, for that particular group of company, we can have a set of companies again in that. So, we need to create that in the division. You are trying to say that?
No. You don't need to create. Those you can create as a legal entities. I
Okay.
mentioned another point related to employees. If you have a 10 countries, 10 countries employees information, how you are going to segregate? By using the concept called as LDZ, legislative data.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Got it. Yeah.
We're talking about just LDZ. Here we are comparing with EBS business group. So in
Yes.
EBS business group, what you can do is if you are implementing for 4 countries, you can create 4 business groups to maintain the country specific employees information. But in the Fusion, you cannot create for 4 countries, 4 enterprises, only one enterprise. Then how you segregate employees data? By using legislative
Legislative.
data.
Yeah. Okay. Got it, sir. So, it's basically to the employees, like,
Yes,
workforce. Yeah.
correct. Only employee records purpose.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, let's talk about the COA best practices, chart of accounts best practices. How do you create the chart of accounts? Reality, what we do is, so we look into the system, what system client is using, and in terms of accounting, what is the data they are capturing in every transaction. What is the common data they are capturing? Are they capturing their legal entity or some other location, branch, account, department, and project? What details they are capturing? We have to understand. Based on that, we can establish the discussion with the client, saying that, so as per Oracle Fusion applications, so this is the meaning of chart of accounts. Within the chart of accounts, we can have a segments and you can maintain the relevant information and you can record the transactions based on that information. Just whatever we understood about chart of account, the same we have to discuss with the client. When we discuss with the client, and we have to tell them few other points also. What are the best practices? Okay, they have to follow, or we have to recommend to the client. So always make sure your balance in segment values are equal to your business units. It is best practice. Many clients don't follow also, but we have to tell them. what does it mean by balance and segment values equal to business units? See here, whatever we discussed as a balance and segment values, these are the balance and segment values. Company values we call as balance and segment values. So if you have a 3 balance and segment values, you create 3 business units. Each balance and segment value, each business unit, you use one balance and segment value. Okay, each business unit, we use one balance and segment value. So that would be the best practice. Okay. So if client is going with the approach like, say, you take this example. To take this example, for each legal entity, if they are going to create one business unit, and they can have that each location has one balance and segment value also. 2 balance and segment values. Only one business unit. Yes, within one business unit, you can have more than one balance and segment value also. But the best practice is to maintain only one business unit, one balance and segment value. This point we will understand once we start working on the payables application. There we will see the reality how it would be. For now, just make a note. So one balance and segment value, okay, the number of balance and segment values you map to the number of business units. If you have a 10 balance and segment values, create 10 business units. That's how it is. When you do AP setups, we will touch base this. When you are doing the setup, we'll come across how we set up balance and segment values to business units. There we will discuss this point once again. The other point. So maintain only one primary balance and segment value. Only one. You can say only one balance and segment. Balance and segment. Only one balance and segment equals. Only one balance and segment. Here we discussed for company we are assigning primary balance and segment label. Now company we are calling as a balance and segment. As a best practice, you make only one segment as a balance and segment. We have few other labels. Secondary balancing segment label, third balancing segment label also. Total we have 3 balancing segment labels. Primary, secondary, third. 3 balancing segment labels we have. Since Oracle is providing, you don't recommend to use those 3. You always recommend to use only one. Only the point is, which is very critical segment for you to prepare the reports. So that segment we have to take as a primary balance and segment label assignment. Remaining segments you should qualify as we discussed. And you should not use secondary balance and segment for a department, third balance and label for another segment. Then all the transactions need to be balanced all the levels. So this point also you'll understand when you create the transactions. Okay. So for now, just make a note. So you always recommend to have only one balance and segment within the chart of accounts. You can go up to 3. It will create many challenges when you create the transactions. So it is not at all recommended. If you see 10 projects, you will have a one balancing segment only. If you see 20 projects also, you will see only one balancing segment. Just Oracle is giving the capability of maintaining 3 balancing segment values in the chart of accounts. Once we understand what is the purpose of the balancing segment, we'll understand the meaning of it. Till the time, just make a note. Okay, these points will be very clear once we start working on the relevant activity. Another point.
One question. Generally, only the legal entity is made the balancing segment label, right?
Only
No
not,
other.
only not. We discussed only not. It could be, right? It could be legal entity, your business unit, or it could be your line of business, could be your business unit, or else it could be the branch. So those are the possibilities. It is not like always legal entity is the business unit. One of the possible use case, that is.
Is any company implemented other than legal entity as a primary balancing segment?
There are many companies.
Generally, when we are doing the balance sheet, balancing only we do by legal entity,
Correct,
and
correct.
that's why I was. Yeah.
That is true. That is true. So even if you are doing the transactions, or I mean, report, balance sheet, or any financial reports you create, okay, so you can do at legal entity level. And apart from that, even if you are going to have under business a legal entity, if you are going to say you have one legal entity, under that you have two businesses, one and two, and when you are going to prepare the reports, if you want to generate the report legal entity level, if you select these two, that is your legal entity level, right? Your legal entity will be mapped to with the company one and two, because these two companies you are running under same registration. That's how you can generate the reports. These are all use cases you come across when you are working. Few clients will go with the legal entity, few clients will go with the under one legal entity. They may have multiple businesses. For each business they want to, in terms of generating the reports, you can generate the reports legal entity, but when you are recording the transaction, what level you want to set, what controls, how it should work, how the data need to be segregated based on those factors. So your business unit may not be legal entity. When you are producing the reports, yes, you will choose the legal entity. Under that legal entity, whatever the data you have, that you will consolidate and you will report.
Okay.
Okay, that's how it works. Yeah. It's not like if you want to produce the reports legal entity level, it is not mandatory. Your legal entity should be your business unit. Okay, your legal entity may not be business unit, but you can consolidate the data at legal entity level across all the BUs. That's how you can generate the reports. You come across with all the use cases. Okay. So one client only will use few legal entities as business units, and few business units are not legal entities. You come across with that use cases. You will have one legal entity and two, three balance and segment values. Each balance and segment value is your business unit. That's how it works. And so other point is, always you have to think about the future and you have to recommend future segments in the chart of accounts. It's not like client is asking few segments, they want to capture the data as per their current reporting requirements, and you are going to design the chart of accounts. No, you have to suggest to the client to maintain the future segments. To accommodate future reporting requirements, you have to create the future segments. And always you should recommend to maintain the intercompany segment also, if they have intercompany transactions. Without intercompany segment, yes, we can record the intercompany transactions in the system, but you cannot have a greater visibility of the transactions happen between which companies, and you cannot have a proper reporting. As a best practice, if company is performing intercompany transaction, if they are performing the transaction internally, always you recommend to go with intercompany segment in the chart of accounts. And you should recommend to the client to maintain hierarchies, parent and child relation. Okay, parent and child relation. So this would be useful for reporting. Okay, maybe after a few sessions we'll be working on rapid implementation concept. There you will see how we can maintain the values with the parent and child. As of now, whatever the values we have within our chart of accounts, those are direct values. No parent and child relationship we created. And as a part of rapid implementation session, we will come across how to maintain the parent and child relation. And
See, currently whatever we are creating is kind of list values, right?
correct, we are listing which is a parent and all we are not defined. Yes.
So in rapid implementation, when we are doing that, how we maintain the list values and parent-child values, both can be maintained, or if you do this,
Both.
then automatically the
Both.
other will come.
Both. How to maintain parent and child relation, we will see. Both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh,
Fine. So we'll see how to just maintain parent and child relation. This will help, this will make business users job very easy when they are going to record the transaction. If you have a parent and child relation, easily they can identify the segment values. And when we are going to produce the reports also, we can have the grouping of parent and child. That will help you for ease of reporting. It will make your life very easy when you are producing the reports as well as during the data entry time. And other point is, don't take segments specific to any application. Means I'm creating the chart of accounts. Within the chart of accounts, I should not take the segment called as supplier. The reason supplier is belongs to payables, maybe along with the payables purchasing. It is required in the payables under purchasing. Now I no need to take segment called as supplier in the chart of account. Reason, suppliers we can create and maintain within the purchasing and payables. Whenever you record the transactions within the purchasing and payables, the supplier segment is not required in the chart of accounts. So supplier is limited to one or two applications. So whatever you are taking in the chart of account as a segment, that should be useful in the most of the applications. That means you should not take supplier as a segment and like customer as a segment, or you should not take employee as a segment. If we are not able to maintain suppliers, customers, employees within our system, that you have to take as a segment into chart of accounts. Okay. What we are not going to maintain or what we cannot maintain in our Fusion applications in any one of the application, so that you have to primarily take as a key information as a chart of accounts data. So what you can maintain in specific application, that you don't take into chart of accounts as a segment. You don't take supplier, customer, employee as a part of chart of accounts as a segments, because those are limited usage. And again, our application has a capability of creating and maintaining the suppliers, customers, employees in the respective applications. Okay, the respective applications you can maintain. So that is the reason these points we need to consider. Okay, we should not take supplier, customers into our chart of accounts design. So these are the key points. Okay, always make sure the number of balance and segment values will be equal to number of business units. This is the best practice that when we are working reality clients, we have to recommend. Final decision is taken care by client. And only one balance and segment. We can have up to 3 balance and segments, but we don't recommend. It will create kind of complexity. How it is when we start working on the transaction process, you'll understand. When you start doing the setups and when we start creating the transaction, these 2 points would be very clear for us. And future segments, always you should recommend the future segments to a client. If you don't recommend, in future it is not possible to add the new segments. You cannot add new segments into chart of accounts. Okay, you cannot add new segments into chart of accounts once you create the chart of account, or say once you start using the chart of accounts. And always recommend intercompany segment if the company is performing transaction internally between the different entities or companies within the same group company. If you have any transactions happening across, always recommend intercompany segment. That will help in terms of detailed reporting. Without intercompany segment also, yes, we can record the intercompany transactions, but you will not have a greater visibility in terms of reporting. If you take one company, this company performed intercompany activities with which company, finding that relationship will become difficult. If you have intercompany segment, it would be easy. Okay, which is the actual company, which is intercompany, means counterparty. Easily you will be able to track when you are recording the transaction. The same you can use for reporting. And parent and child relationship. Okay, when you are creating company values, department, account, any segment values, maintain parent and child relationship, so that easily you can find out that information, and it would be very much useful for reporting, budgeting, and other aspects also. Don't take segments specific to any application. When you design the chart of accounts, don't take anything as a segment into chart of account if it is going to be useful for a specific application only, or else don't take anything as one of the segment into chart of account if already the data can be maintained in those applications. And again, grouping also, account grouping. Okay, that account grouping also we'll see along with this rapid implementation concept. So what we have to do is we created segment values within the chart of accounts. If you take example, these account values, okay, salaries is related to expense account, this bank account related to asset, okay, and you may have a revenue accounts, etc., expense accounts. So when you design when you create the chart of accounts, when you design the solution, we always recommend to the client to maintain the account grouping. So maybe expense accounts or say asset accounts, you start with the 10,000 as a series, and maybe like assets you may choose 20,000, revenue maybe 40,000, and expense maybe 50,000. That's how we allocate a separate sequence, so that it would be easy for them to understand. If anything is starting with the 50,000, that is the expense account. Anything is starting with the 40,000, that is revenue account. If anything is starting with 10,000, that is asset related accounts. This is based on the nature. We always recommend to the client to create the grouping. That also you'll see when you deal with the rapid implementation concept. Okay, maybe after 2-3 sessions hardly we'll start working on the rapid implementation. So there you can see these are all points. Just make a note. Now itself you cannot understand few points. We have to just make a note and wait to see when those can be connected when we deal with relevant tasks. Yep. So these are the best practices. Always we have to make a note and we have to recommend to the client to follow this. If they listen, okay. If they don't listen, we create as per their requirement. Okay, ultimate decision is taken care by client. As a consultant, okay, you should know the product and you will be recommending the client what is the best practice. The decision making and all will be done by client. It may be wise decision or poor decision. The client only will take, but will always try to assist to the client how to use this application, what is the best practice. That would be the job of consultant primarily.
Why don't we include limiting the segments 7 to 10 numbers as the best practice?
Yeah, definitely. That's always. But reality, there won't be any need to go with a huge number also. Okay, because the suppliers you don't need to take into chart of accounts. Suppliers already there in the payables, customers already there in the receivables, employees already there in the HCM. So that's all. Yeah, yes, that also you can include. Okay, limit number of segments. Okay, limit number of segments in COA. Already discussed the typical count of segments could be in between 7 to 10. Okay, So that's how it is. This all we treat as a best practices. We always recommend this to the client, and accordingly we design the chart of accounts. Will client accept with us or not, that is secondary, but we recommend. So that's all about the best practices when you talk about chart of accounts. Yes, max we can create 30. No client is using even 15 or 20 also. So most of the clients, they always use less than 10. So on an average, you can see 7, 8, including the future segments. Rarely you may see here and there some clients 10 plus also, but there is no great need, but it could be exceptional case. But always we'll try to limit number of segments because every application has its own capability of capturing the data. What data commonly you require for your reporting purpose, that only we have to include as a part of chart of account segments. That's how it is. Any questions here, please? No. Fine. Now let's talk about segments naming convention. When you create chart of accounts for any
Excuse me.
implementations. So,
Hello.
yeah, please.
Yeah. So I had a query, like on what basis the chart of accounts should be made?
Who's speaking?
Like
Same guy.
Akshat this right?
Yeah, actually, please.
Yeah, like you said, na, that the chart of accounts limit should be limited to 10. So what are the bases?
Which point you are referring? Akshit?
Yeah, I'm asking like you think the average chart of accounts should be 10 and it can go up to 50, right?
How many?
This chart of accounts.
No, average we discussed in between like 7 to 10. What is your
Okay.
question? Oh,
So
what is
on
your
what,
question I'm asking?
yeah, that's what I'm saying. On what basis this should be average number should be 7? On what is the
We
basis
discussed,
of
right?
on a
Hope you
on arriving?
attended. You clearly explained the beginning itself. So what we discussed. So company and account mandatory. Department also we use. If you have intercompany transactions, we use intercompany. And we recommend future one and future two. Client may opt to two future or one future, remaining one or two segments based on their business. That's it. Based on the nature of business, what they are doing, they will choose. If they are into service industry, they may come up with the segment need as a service line or service type. They're into some selling some products and all products. If it is something like healthcare industry, maybe they can have a segment as a specialist or some other segment. The one or two segments always based on their business what they are doing. Rest almost like company and account mandatory, department typical in every project we use, every company will use to capture their expenses primarily. Intercompany to perform the transactions in between, and future one, future two already discussed. These one or two segments would be unique from company to client. That totally depends on their business. The same point. Which are commonly used, which are unique for them. That's it. Clear?
Clear.
Yeah. No, I felt the voice was different. That's the reason I was asking the question again. Okay. Fine. I think okay, earlier the other guy. Okay. Got it. Yeah. Done. But any other questions here, please? No questions. Now we'll look at naming convention. When we use this segments in the chart of accounts in different projects, we come across with the different naming conventions also. So what are the typical naming conventions we come across when we are working in the projects? So we are calling as a company in some projects. Okay, the client would say, your company is nothing but my business unit only. I want to have a segment name as a business unit. So the segment name could be business unit. And if not business unit, some clients will ask, anyway, my company is nothing but my legal entity. So I want to have a segment name itself legal entity instead of company. In some implementations, they says my company means not legal entity. Okay. So that legal entity has 4 branches, 4 businesses. So that I want to take as a segment. It could be branch also. The segment name you may see as a branch or outlet. And in some implementations, the name could be, if client is not taking legal entity as a company, and the one legal entity may have multiple line of businesses. In that case, they take, instead of taking as a company, LOB as a segment, line of business. Okay, business, or else you can call as a vertical business. These are the possible naming conventions generally we come across. Okay, but these are all like you may call it company or business unit, legal entity, branch or LOB. Mostly this is what we qualify as a balancing segment. And department, yes, in most of the project we use the same naming convention. And sometimes clients will ask us, you keep anyway, this is going to act as a cost center, keep as a cost center. Okay, sometimes they will just ask us to name cost center or profit center also. Account you see as account in many projects. Sometimes client will prefer to use as a GL account. Segment name itself GL account, not just account. And some clients they says we want to have a segment name as a GL code. In some projects, client says natural account. Natural account. And the intercompany, we use sometimes the client will prefer to have just as ICO. In some projects, client will prefer to have a name as a counterparty. And instead of future, okay, so you can just see as a buffer 1, buffer 2 also. In some projects, client will say default, segment name itself default. Or else simply they will just prefer to have a name as just F1, future 1. So this is how you just, or in some projects we just they prefer as a additional 1, additional 2. So these are the typical naming conventions we come across as a part of implementations. Okay, this is how the client will choose the naming conventions. So it may be based on their current system, what they are using in the current system, what is the naming convention they are using when they are recording the transactions. Accordingly, they may prefer, or else it could be their desired name, how they want to see their chart of account segment names when business users are going to record, or else those are the naming conventions very familiar with the business users since they are using in the current system. That would be more easy for them to understand when they are recording the transaction. They may come up with these different naming conventions. Accordingly, you have to create. Okay. So very primarily you see as a company, department, account, intercompany, project, future, and the rest. Those are the possibilities which you may come across. So this is what we have to understand about the naming conventions which we use. So any questions here, please? No. Fine. So no questions. Then what we'll do is we are done with this. In tomorrow session, we'll start with this enterprise. Okay. The tomorrow session, we can start with the enterprise. First, we'll complete the primary ledger since we are ready with the chart of accounts and the calendar information. Then we'll complete legal entity. Once we complete these two, we can proceed with enterprise division. We'll create division also, even we are not going to use, we'll create the division. Yeah. We'll see that. Okay. So in tomorrow session, we are going to work on the system to create the enterprise structure. We'll do that. So any questions, you can stay back, we'll discuss. If no question, we will connect tomorrow, same time.